Chapter 1. Eddie Solomon frowned as the shutter on his camera flickered. Life as a private investigator was not what he wanted. But right now, he was out of options. Surveillance on someone cheating an insurance company was a far cry from what he used to do. He thought back to when he worked as a detective for the LAPD. Life was a lot better then, at least until 3 years ago. But he didn't want to relive that moment. The thought of it caused anxiety. If an attack came on, he'd be useless until his medicine kicked in. Just another headache to add to the list. He packed up his camera, ready to put an end to another miserable day when his brother called. Great, I wonder what he wants now. He sighed as he picked up the phone. Hello, Lester. No need to sound like that, his brother replied. Are you getting those pics to me today? The client's all over me to get proof of this guy doing things he shouldn't, and they want it sooner rather than later. Eddie rolled his eyes and tried to keep the irritation out of his voice. I have plenty of pictures that should make everyone happy. Except, of course, Mr. Davis. I'll be at your office in about an hour. Don't be late. I'm calling them as soon as I hang up. Lester, have I ever been late a day in my life? No, I'm early for everything. Yes, bye. Eddie's phone went dark. He started his car and made the trip back into the city to his brother's law office. It was a small practice, only him, but that's the way Lester liked it. He first started at a big law firm right out of college. Things went well for a while, but Lester was a type A personality. He didn't like following someone else's lead. He stole a few clients from that firm and began his own law practice. When Eddie quit the LAPD, he was adrift in a sea of pain and misery. He kept everything bottled up inside and refused to burden anyone else with it. When Lester reached out to him, it came as a surprise. Eddie always kept that part of his life separate from his life in Philly. Lester offered him to come home, an offer he didn't jump at right away. But after a few weeks, he realized Los Angeles held too many memories, the good and the bad. Eddie came home to Philly and took the job as a private investigator for his brother's firm. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid the bills, kept a roof over his head, and kept the dark thoughts of LA at bay. Mostly. He pulled up to Lester's office and put on his best fake smile. Blair Benson greeted Eddie when he came into the office. She jumped up from behind her desk and embraced him in a warm hug. She always made him feel appreciated. She pulled back, grabbed his arms, and looked him in the eyes. I'm so glad you're here. Lester's been pacing ever since he called you. I've tried to get him to calm down, but he just won't listen. He's worried about this fraud case, you know. I hate seeing him like this. Eddie gave her a look of sympathy. I'll talk to him. I'll offer to buy dinner. That always puts him in a good mood. He walked around Blair and into Lester's office. If there was one thing Eddie admired about his brother, it was his attention to detail. From the way he decorated his office down to his appearance, he always dressed like he was about to try a case in front of the Supreme Court. Tailored suits, polished shoes. His hair was receding, but he kept it short enough so it wasn't too noticeable. He even tried to get him to wear a suit. Eddie stood his ground, jeans and dress shirts. Lester conceded, reluctantly. Les, I have the pictures. You can stop worrying, Eddie said. He tossed an envelope on the desk and sat down. Lester stopped pacing and straightened his jacket. He turned toward Eddie, his eyes cold and flat. Don't call me Les. You know I hate that. Yeah, well, I needed to get your focus off of brooding and on to other things. It worked, didn't it? Don't do it again. Lester glared at him once more before he lightened up and offered a smile. How'd the pics turn out? He fanned through the envelope. There's no way Davis can get out of this. How long has he been defrauding the insurance company? Lester sat down and tapped some keys on his laptop. Almost 2 years. Every time they tried to nail him, He'd admit himself to the hospital and claim another injury. Between the pictures and the doctor I found helping our Mr. Davis, he's done for. Lester clapped his hands and stood up. This is great news. Tomorrow, a representative from the company is coming, and we can begin our next move. Lester walked around his desk and put a hand on his brother's shoulder. Did I hear you say something about buying dinner? Eddie Solomon wasn't happy, but sometimes a little bit of happiness got through, and he felt almost normal. Fire trucks screamed by the restaurant, and Eddie snapped his head up. The mere sound of sirens was enough to cause an anxiety attack. They didn't happen often, but every now and then they snuck in. Eddie's chest tightened, and it felt like his heart was about to be crushed. Both Lester and Blair looked at each other. "Where are your pills?" Lester asked. Blair dug through Eddie's jacket, found the bottle, and fished out a pill for him. He swallowed it dry. Lester cringed. Eddie sat still, trying to control his breathing, and thought about his happy place. He was desperate to maintain his composure, but he was just getting worse. His anxiety sometimes hijacked his common sense, and he let dark thoughts flood in and overwhelm him. Like the guilt. He felt guilty for letting himself feel happy, even for a moment. He looked up and found Lester, Blair, and several other people watching him. Eddie felt flush and excused himself from the table. He made his way to the men's room and splashed cold water on his face. How long would this plague him? He leaned over the sink and gazed at his reflection. "I'm going to check on Eddie," Lester said to Blair, and then headed to the restroom. He found his brother staring into the mirror. "Blair's paying for dinner, and we're calling you a cab. You're in no shape to drive right now." "I'm fine," Eddie snapped. "I can get myself home." Lester didn't like being talked to like that. He knew Eddie could get defensive, yet he was here trying to help. That deserved a little civility. He fought back the urge to argue. "I know you can," he said, and put a hand on Eddie's shoulder. "You go home and take it easy. The insurance rep will be in tomorrow, and I'll be busy with paperwork the rest of the day. Stay home and rest." Eddie looked over at Lester with red, bloodshot eyes. Then his face relaxed. He actually seemed relieved. "Thanks. I have a lot on my mind. I can tell. You have not been yourself tonight. You want to talk about it?" "No, this is something I need to do myself." Eddie turned to leave. His shoulders were slumped, and he had a faraway look in his eyes. Lester put his arm around his brother as they walked out. Blair was waiting for them by the door with Eddie's jacket. He took it, thanked Blair for her help, and gave her a peck on the cheek. She blushed and pushed a lock of her blonde hair behind her ear. Lester took a friendly jab at Eddie's ribs. "You trying to steal my girl?" he said with a smile. Eddie gave him a look and shook his head. "I'm not trying anything." Lester shrugged and glanced at Blair. "Well, you made me smile," she said. The night air was muggy for May. Eddie carried his jacket and walked toward the waiting cab. "Thanks for covering dinner, Blair. I owe you one." Blair held out her arms to give him a hug. "Aw, don't even worry." Out of nowhere, a blue beam of light tore through the sky and struck Eddie. Lester and Blair stumbled backward. It hit him on the top of his head and shot through to his feet. Eddie lifted almost a foot off the ground. The blue beam ran through him for almost a full minute, and Eddie looked like he was in terrible pain. In a pugilistic pose, his face contorted in a mask of twisted agony.